price, and all these 100 products will also work the subscription price.
Fair enough.
You know, as I was saying, the subscription value for customers is what they see upcoming in the product and what they're willing to pay for. If you can put together a product that provides content updates or value to the customer that, you know, extends out into the future, that the customer can understand what that value is, then I think you look at it and say, okay, that's a candidate for a subscription application, because it's something that is easy to explain to a customer why they're going to have value in the future, what that value will be. It's not something that will be surprising to the customer. They understand what they're going to get. But if it's really about present value, it's really about, you know, this is a box. This is a product that, this is the walls on the box. There's X number of levels. You know, this is what you can do. You know, you can submit your score, but you can't do much more than that. You know, customers are saying, well, okay, so if I finish it this month, what am I paying for next month? Yeah. And so in that case, it's more of a fixed price model where you say, okay, I'm putting this together. This is a unit of work we're putting into this. You know, we're not dropping the product internally afterwards, but we're moving on to the next product from the prospect of, you know, major future development. And we wouldn't put, you know, version 2 or version 3 into it as a free upgrade. You know, Windows 95 and Windows 98 and XP, you had to pay for each one of those updates, but the intermediate you know, the service packs are all free. So that's the, you know, one-time pricing model. But if you can find a product like New York Times Crosswords, like the Major League Baseball application on the iTunes Store is another fantastic example.
Greatest app ever.
It's a single price for the year, and they didn't tell me when I first purchased it that the next year I would have to pay again. But it's a fantastic application. Yeah. And when the next year came up and they said, okay, it's $7 again, and you didn't just pay for the same app, you downloaded the new application. Yeah, I was quite happy to plop my $7 down again, because what I received from that application is incredible value to me as a baseball fan. And that's kind of that middle ground where you're paying a fixed price, but now after a couple of years, I realized that I'm actually paying for this year. I'm not paying a fixed price for lifetime, although I can run the application indefinitely and get news out of it. But the content that's going to be provided next year is new content, new value for me. I know what that's going to be. I know what a baseball game is like. I know what it is like listening to it or watching it on the iPhone. I understand that it's something easy to express, so I'm willing to pay for next year, for the subscription for the rest of the year. And New York Times Crosswords is the exact same thing. It's just a daily content infusion versus a yearly content infusion.
So just suit your product or your product pricing and the product pricing model to the actual product, right? Don't try to cram one into the other.
Absolutely.
Well, so now you launch New York Times Crosswords. I mean, it's a big brand. It's a big success. You've had, you know, however many hundreds and thousands of downloads across, you know, multiple number of platforms. How have you leveraged that brand with all the other games, the other things that Magmic does, the other relationships that you have, or has it opened up doors? Those, you know, with a brand like that, it should be a massive boost for a company like Magmic.
Well, the key for any company that has a large volume of titles is not just selling the customer one title, but finding a way to introduce the customer to the rest of your titles as well. So having a brand on one of your particular titles, you know, opens doors and access to more customers than you might, you know, have for a regular product or a different segment of the customer base. And the key is to really take that customer base and market the rest of your products to them. So, you know, the concrete example in New York Times Crosswords is that on the main menu there's a More Fun button, and when you click More Fun, you get a catalog of Magmic content available on the iTunes store that the user can purchase. So everyone that purchases or downloads the free version of the New York Times Crosswords, you know, can see other content that Magmic has. And we've got 8 or 10 products available on the iTunes deck out of, you know, how many hundreds of thousands of applications. Yeah. So, you know, expecting the users to run across them by chance on the iTunes deck is a fairly remote possibility. But as soon as I have any one of my iTunes or iPhone applications in a user's hands, I know that they're going to have a button on screen that's More Fun and one-click access to the rest of our catalog. They don't have to wade through all the other applications. They can see our stuff directly. And that's really key for us as a publisher, to provide that value to our own products, to say we're going to cross-market them, but also provide that value when we're working with other partners. So, When we sign the next product that we have in place, every time we sign a new product and gain a whole bunch of customers, our value as a publisher increases. So we can tell the next partner, okay, we have X amount of traffic and we have X amount of sales that come through the cross marketing we do for the rest of our products. So you can go with somebody else, a developer or someone with a couple of products, and you put it on the store and work to do marketing and spend money on it. But the money that we're not spending on marketing is because we don't have to outlay $10,000 to buy an ad somewhere, because we have products with ads built into them, and not in user space like, oh, listen to this 30-second ad before you play the game. In a more subtle manner, in a way that's integrated with the game experience, which generally has a much more positive user reaction than having forced to sit through an advertisement that's more blatant.
Yeah, like an ad mob or something like that. I mean, my big idea for you would be to start to put your game titles in as clues in the crosswords, right? What's the greatest poker game, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if we quite have that much influence in the designers of the crossword puzzles of the New York Times, but
well, yeah, I mean, what are they going to know? Just slip it in there.
Well, they do take submissions of crossword puzzles and evaluate them to include in the paper, but I'm not sure that corporate sponsored crossword puzzles are necessarily in the future.
Hey, there's only 10 clues in here, and they're all Magmic titles.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you leverage the relationship with the New York Times. Now that product is distributed to a number of thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of people that have downloaded the free version, paid for it across all these platforms, and now you're showing your games, your own IP, Magmic's own IP, as well as companies that you're doing the distribution for. So all of a sudden, you've got games like Kaglom, who does 1 million, or I don't even know how many downloads. It's over 1 million, isn't it? 2 million?
In its lifetime?
Yeah.
Well over 5 million downloads in its lifetime.
That was way off. So, but that's part of it, right? Like to choose a publisher like this, every incremental brand that you bring on increases the reach, increases the number of people that you've touched, right? So 5 million in Kaglom, whatever it is in New York Times, it should surpass Kaglom at some point. You got to assume, and that's a great reason to go with you guys. So you leverage these brands to go out and find new customers. So it enhances your brand as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We, as a publisher, increase our value with every brand that we add, not just because we're associated with that brand, which is always a positive, but because we can turn that brand into more sales for our other partners. So when we look at ourselves as value as a publisher, it's not just what can we provide in terms of cross-marketing. It's when we go to a partner, a licensing partner, and say, we want to be a publisher for you, here's why. We need to put together that sales pitch. Part of our sales pitch is that we bring value to their brand by being partnered with other brands.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, it's you can see this cascading, and maybe you don't want to answer this question, but there's a rev share, obviously, or there's a licensing cost to do this with the New York Times. But it's not like a bid where it's the highest bid wins. It's a selection process that the New York Times went through to pick Magmic. But there's always a cost associated with that, and whatever it is, you got to assume that cost has been swallowed by the increased reach, increased awareness of Magmic, as well as I've seen ads in the New York Times for your product. I saw an ad in Newsweek maybe I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 months ago, that it was Dana Delaney plays the New York Times crosswords, and maybe she's like a C-level celebrity, but I still thought, hey, this is